everyone, I am Sarai Diaz, a realtor at Remax Tehachapi.
And this is Kevin Sanderlin, a loan officer at Arbor Financial Group.
Cool. And I brought in over Kevin Sanderlin to talk today about debts and mortgage loans. If you're even thinking about a loan for a new house or your second house, he's going to provide you some really good insight as to what to do to get to the point where you can get a pre-approval and start looking for houses in your budget. So without further ado, Kevin, do you want to explain a little bit of what you do just to get the gist going?
Sure, basically. So, as a loan officer, most people I talk to, they've already been introduced to their realtor, and then I come in after they have maybe looked at some houses, decided they want to buy a house, decided they want to apply for a mortgage. And when I talk to them, first thing I do is just talk about how we're going to take an application, collect some documents, and run credit. So today we're going to talk about that running credit portion of things and the things to keep in mind. And number one, I can tell you right off the bat is almost all of the time, I wish that I would been able to contact these potential buyers sooner because half the time or so they have some work to do on their credit, maybe more than they realized. And that extra time, the sooner we can get started on that, the better. So that's first of all the first thing I notice when I'm talking to a new potential client is, hey, let's get started right away, because if there's some work we need to do on your credit, the sooner we can get started, the better.
So,
Mhm.
if you're watching this video, this is awesome. You will get the perfect insight as to what to do exactly. So without further ado, are you ready for some questions, Kevin?
Yep, let's go for it.
All right, cool. So question number one is it better to have absolutely no debt or some debt when purchasing a house?
Ideally, if there's no debt, that's great, but it's not mandatory. So it's completely fine if you have debt. And a big mistake that I see people make is they'll just basically throw all their money at their debt, and then they don't have enough money left over for purchase. So the best thing to do before you put too much money towards your debt is to talk to that mortgage loan officer first, so that that money is being managed strategically in order to give you the best chances of getting that loan. So what's more important than whether or not to have debt is something that we're going to calculate called your debt to income ratio. So we take your monthly liability expenses, so that'd be like a minimum payment due on a credit card or a car loan, things like that, and then we're going to compare that to the monthly income of your job, and we're going to see what that ratio looks like, and that's what's going to tell us how much you qualify for. So the answer really depends on how much money you make and how much your debts are compared to your income. But definitely before you just pay everything off, it's best to talk to your loan officer first and see if that's the best move.
So we've come to know, is it good to have completely no debt or come to buy a house with a little bit of debt? So we've understood that little balance. So the next thing is, how do you actually build your credit up to be able to financially be stable and still be able to purchase a house?
Sure. So a lot of times when I run someone's credit, I notice that they maybe don't have any credit cards or they don't have a car loan, which is great. They're paying cash and they're living within their means, and that's awesome. First thing I'm going to do is applaud that person. Way to go! You're in great shape. But if they don't have any credit cards or a car loan, they might not even have a credit score, or they might not have enough credit lines to qualify for a home loan. So with that person, I'm going to work with them on building their credit so that they can apply for that home loan. Uh, First thing I'm going to say usually is to go apply for a credit card and see if you get approved or denied, depending on your credit score and what's going on. If it's the very first credit card you've ever gotten, that limit might be as low as $200 or $300, and that's okay. You get a small card, you go use it once or twice, pay it off at the end of the month, and then a month or two later, you're going to apply for another credit card. And hopefully instead of a $200 to $300 limit, you're going to get a $500 to $700 limit. So that's just an example of what it might look like to build someone's credit when they're just starting out and starting fresh and trying to build their credit. And overall, you do ultimately want to have at least three credit cards at a minimum, or three credit lines at a minimum, I should say, to maximize that credit score and credit history.
Now, going off of that, does it matter where you're getting your credit cards from? Say someone gets like a travel credit card or just a credit card from their bank or JCPenney. Does it really matter where you're getting your credit cards from?
That's a great question. Um, it depends. So sometimes if someone's just starting out, they apply for a normal credit card. A lot of times they'll get denied for lack of credit history. So that first card might have to be a department store or a prepaid card where you actually pay, let's say $300, and then they give you a credit card of $300, which, it's your own money you're spending. You're not even borrowing money at that point, but just managing that card will earn you some history so that next time you apply for a regular credit card, you'll be more likely to get approved. So ideally, when it comes to credit cards, ideally you would get just a regular, uh, large Visa or MasterCard type of card. But again, if you get denied, you're probably going to have to start out with a department store or a prepaid credit card. After you do have established credit and you do have one or two credit cards, then it's a good idea to try to stay away from the department store cards, because those are seen as luxury expenditures instead of a regular credit card, which can be used for things like food and gas and necessities. So in the long run, you want to try to have more normal credit cards and less department store credit cards.
Thanks for that insight, Kevin. And on to question number three is how do you have any tips on how to improve your credit? Any general tips or just specific home loan tips to get to that point where we can get a pre-approval going?
Again, reaching out to your mortgage advisor first, obviously, to see what the situation is. It's different for everybody, just depending on what they have going on. And then if needed, if there's some negative marks on the credit, then I'm oftentimes going to refer people to one of my credit repair specialists, and they can actually get negative remarks removed and really increase those credit scores a lot quicker than just waiting around for them to naturally go up. So aside from that, there's just some general rules of thumb, so to speak, where you're keeping your balances at less than 30% of the limit, which most of the time when I run someone's credit, they're not doing that. So I see a lot of people with credit cards that are, maxed out or almost maxed or used quite a bit. But ideally, if you can keep those balances less than 30% of your limit, that would be a good thing to shoot for. And therefore, you can see where multiple cards might come in handy, right? So if you have one card, 30%, you might get to that pretty quickly. But if you have two or three or four cards, then you can kind of stretch it out a little bit and be more likely to stay under that 30% mark. And if you could do that, that's going to really, over time, that's going to really increase your credit scores. So that's one real basic tip there. I would say the most important thing when it comes to credit scores is just to not miss any payments, because as soon as you get one 30-day late, I've seen credit scores drop from 800 down to 700 or 700 down to 600. So 100 point difference just for one 30-day late is not uncommon. And it's a real bummer, because usually it's just, someone had the money there. They just, missed one payment. The bill didn't end up getting paid for some reason. The most common reason is if someone moves and it doesn't get shipped to their correct address. So the more you can put your bills on auto pay and not change your accounting information and keep things systemized, the more better off you are going to be at making sure you don't miss those payments. So that's the other thing is just not getting any 30-day lates too. Sometimes people complain and they say, well, because if you do too much of that, your score might go down in, let's say, the 500s. And then I have to tell someone, look, I can't get you a loan right now because your credit score is in the 500s. And they're like, oh man, why, that sucks. Why is that? I just missed a few payments. Well, I'll tell you what, if I'm a bank and I'm going to lend someone, $300,000, and this person can't be on time with their credit card payments of balances of, $1,000 or $2,000, then what makes me think that they're going to be on time with their payments of $2,000 or $3,000 every month? So, it's just the way the banks have decided to measure their risk when deciding whether or not to give someone a loan or not. Yep.
So cool. Thank you, Kevin, for your insights. And if you have any more questions, his information will be down below. Give him a call, send him a text, and he'll be always more than happy to help you out.
You're welcome. Happy to help out anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin.